Welcome to downtown Cowtown at the historic ISIS Theater. We're so glad you're here. For me, this journey started way back in 2016. He talks about endurance. It's been quite a journey. My wife is here somewhere. Where is she? There she is. She's at the back right there. So the journey starts with her and I sitting down. Both of us were in education for a very long time. Teachers, administrators, etc. And we kind of got to a crossroads. We were at a point where we were saying, is this it? Is this all we're doing? Is there things that we want to accomplish, things that we want to share with our 4 kids and be able to show them that, yes, if you do have dreams, that you can pursue them. Even if we fall short, what would that be? And I remember it plain as day. We had this conversation. We sat down. It was right before Christmas, 2016. And I said, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to get the ISIS Theater. It's been sitting here since 1988. Nobody touched it. It's falling apart. It hurts my heart that it's that way. I've been involved in theaters my whole life. I've done it for other people. I'd like to do it for us, and for us to dive in and just let's go for it. Win, lose, or draw. Let's see how it goes. And God love her. She looked at me and she said, okay. And literally and we had looked before about this building. We had looked at it. Who owns it? Was there a possibility? Could we do something with this? And couldn't really find any information out. But when we made that decision, we were resolute. That's what we were doing. Within 24 hours of that conversation, she had us incorporated. 24 hours of that conversation, we actually found out who owned the building, where it was. It just happened to be in an estate that the deal that was brokered was by a realtor that my wife actually knew from high school. So she picks up the phone, calls him, and the next thing I know, we've got a meeting, we're sitting, and we're off to the races. So things just kind of fell into place at the beginning for that to happen. But as Jerry pointed out, this is no joke. When you walked into this building, and I'm going to encourage, once we're done talking here, and obviously I'm happy to answer any questions, I can talk about this for days. But the pictures out in the front kind of tell the story. It came from the ashes. I mean, literally, you look at those pictures. That's not fire. That's not, that's nothing more than Mother Nature taking a toll on this building. It had really been left to its own demise. The 4 corners were caved in, and it was just a pile of rubble everywhere. But I walked in here like a kid in a candy store. I walked in the door. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew when I walked in the front doors over there, I was like, okay, right here is going to be where the bar is going to be located. And hang on, let me get over this over here. And this is where we're going to have, the door entry is going to be brought back. And we're going to make sure that it's 500 seats so that there's plenty of space. It's a mid-sized house. It's not the 1,000 seat house that it was originally. That way we can do a lot of things that are tied to theatrical productions. In case you can't tell, this feels a little bit more like an off-Broadway house. That's kind of the way we wanted it to be. The floor that you're sitting, the floor that's underneath you is the exact floor that was here in 1936. So, brief history. I'm going to take you back a little bit. This building's been here since 1914. Originally, it was a movie theater, a pharmacy, and a 12-room rooming house right across here. And then on the back area right over here was a Western Union. Back, in the day of the Western Union. That's how old the building is. And actually, when you first came into the doors, you would turn and face that direction to watch the movies in here. 1935, they suffered a tragic fire in the building, and the owner at the time, Larry Tidball, wanted to make this the theater, the premier theater in Fort Worth. So if you were to actually go back, and we did tons of research on this, that it just kind of disappears in 1935. And then all of a sudden in 1936, grand reopening, cooled air, 1,000-seat house. They had all of these things lined up as congratulations for your grand opening. They did it with babes in arms, and they actually had a full-size elephant parading right out there on Main Street for the movie premiere. It was a huge splash to the city of Fort Worth. Now, this building has suffered a couple of other tragedies, for lack of a better term. This is below street level where you're sitting. And in 1942, the Great Flood of Marine Creek out there flooded this building where you pretty much would have been underwater. So it was originally done where you come up that ramp, and that is the original steepness of the ramp. That's exactly like it was back in 1936. But originally you would come up and turn and walk up to a mezzanine. But when it flooded, they went ahead and closed it off and turned it into a balcony because they wanted to protect this area so it wouldn't flood again. So that was the big change in 42. 54, they changed the decor on the inside. It became more of a Western motif. 1968, excuse me, 1968, it changed ownership to Harold Griffiths of Griff's Burgers. He owned it from 1968 to 1988, and that's when it went dormant. Now, the theater itself, when they did the 1,000-seat house, they took out the rooming house. They kept the pharmacy in the front, and that's been everything from a pharmacy to a chiropractor to a jeweler's. There's actually a picture when we talked to some folks that were family members of the individual that's in that picture. And his name escapes me right now, but he was the jeweler, the one that's standing in front of the concession stand out there in the front. You can take a look at that in a little bit. But that's kind of this in a nutshell. 1988, it went dormant. Nobody did anything with this building until 2016 when we got a hold of it. We didn't start working here until 2017. So if you can imagine, I mean, that picture, I keep that picture prominent just because when Jerry came in, even his eyeballs were just like, you got to be kidding me, really? But it does show how far we had to go to get this thing done. And I was committed 100% to making sure by hook or by crook we got it done. So everything you see here, we did everything we could to make sure that it reflected what it was like back in 1936. So the front area in there, the terrazzo on the floor is a full recreation. The terrazzo that's out in front, the black and white zigzag, that's the original. We didn't do anything to that. That's been here. We re-poured the terrazzo, unfortunately we had to. But the ramp's the same. That area over there that was the pharmacy, technically it still is a pharmacy because we turned it into a bar. But the bar out there is a 1929 bar, actually out of somebody's house in North Carolina, believe it or not. The area upstairs that was the balcony, we took that out and we put in a private space. So it's actually available for rentals, it's available for receptions. We open it as a speakeasy lounge a couple of times a week, and the hope is to increase those frequencies. There's a window on the back over here that's actually, you can have a group up there watching what's going on down here. And the bar that is up there is a 1929 bar directly out of a speakeasy in New Orleans. And my wife would kill me if I didn't mention the fact that there are two absolutely beautiful chandeliers up there that she picked that we found in New Orleans, and unrelated to the fact that we had the bar from New Orleans, that kind of became a happy accident. So all told, to get to where we are, which you're sitting in right now, it took us about 5 years to get it done. So when he talks about perseverance, endurance, we went into this thing and worked tirelessly day in and day out to make sure that we got it to where we needed to. We ran into a lot of roadblocks. Obviously, in the middle of that was COVID. You would think there's a blessing and a curse with that when you're doing commercial construction. I had to learn a lot about that because I'm not a commercial construction person. But the blessing was that we were essential, so we could continue working. So we were able to shut down 24th Street to stage everything out. The curse was all of your deliverables were on delay. So everything basically just came to a screeching halt on getting here. So everybody was in here working at the same time. So I had concrete workers, I had, wall, the stuff going on the walls, the ceiling stuff, the electrical, the plumbing, they're all in here at the same time. And I sort of learned you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be a little bit more staged than that, but it really did work to our advantage. And we worked tirelessly through thick and thin. I always found myself that if I ever felt like this wasn't going to get done, and there were a lot of times that it got close to that I would come in here and I would sit down just somewhere in the space. Sometimes it was just on a cinder block, sometimes it was on a bucket, just to be in here. And there's something about this space that always spoke to me, and I would always feel better about what I was doing, where I was headed. And then I'd be like, okay, let's keep going. So what we have done that is different Yes, this is a movie theater, but it is a live entertainment venue, obviously, with the size of the stage. We put in the stage, we extended it so we can do everything from live music to theatrical productions to opera to, we're doing the Candlelight series. The quartet stuff is phenomenal in here with all the candles. It's incredible. We do those once a month. We do all sorts of different types of live entertainment. We do over 150 shows a year. We've been at it for about 2 years now, and we're still trucking, and we're going into year 3 with a really cool residency for 13 weeks that starts February 1st. We will have the official Sesame Street musical in here for 13 weeks. So every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can come down and see Bert and Ernie and Elmo and Count and all of the wonderful Muppets. They'll all be in the space. It's going to be fantastic. So. Like I said, I could talk on this for days. I'm trying to abbreviate as best I can. What I'd really like to be able to do is, because I do like the fact, and I appreciate very much that Jerry offered for me to be speaking with creatives, because when I tell people about this space, this was a sculpture for me. This was, you're sitting in the epitome of creativity. We wanted to be able to build this from the ground up. And yes, I did see this. When you look at those pictures out there, you look at behind me on that, this is what I saw, plain as day. And I was going to do everything I could to get it to this. Some people thought I was insane.
I never thought that.
Some people, yes, a lot of people thought I was insane, that this was never going to happen. But let's fast forward from 2017, stepping over the rubble, to 2021, June 7th. We were still plugging in lights out on the front as we laid the red carpet on the side of the building to premiere 12 Mighty Orphans in this space. So 12 Mighty Orphans was the first thing we did. We didn't even have the carpet down, and we had the entire city of Fort Worth, the mayor, city manager, everybody was in the building. And so that was our first baptism by fire, was the first thing that we did out of the chute. And then since then we have done, Michael Martin Murphy's been here. We've done Yellowstone season 5 premiere. We've done the red carpet for that. We've done countless country and Western artists, tribute artists. We just finished this last week. We did a Broadway Halloween review, and then going into today and tomorrow, we're doing a Halloween scare-a-thon. So yes, I have a movie screen that goes right here, and it fits from wall to wall on the red curtains here. So it is truly a movie theater. It is full surround sound. You get the same experience. So we're doing a marathon of scary movies for today and tomorrow. So if you guys want to come hang out, we actually have a lot of vendors tomorrow. We're doing trivia. We even have a paranormal investigation company coming. So, I mean, it's during Halloween, right? So, and Jerry did also ask for that and wanted to know, is the space haunted? And the answer is yes, it is. So, but in a very good way. So we have 3 regular visitors that are here. If you're lucky, you'll experience something while you're here. Number 1 on the list is Marjorie. We call her Marjorie. We believe that she perished in the rooming house because her space is up there in the green room. And she will wander around the whole space. She's kind of like the protector of the entire space. And she's sort of, I always tell people, she's like Casper. She's very friendly, she's very supportive, but she's also very protective. So she doesn't like evil spirits or you know, messing around and things like that. So she's very protective about it. And people tell me she's always usually around me because we were able to bring back what was her home. And I've seen her twice. I will admit it, I've seen her twice. Standing in that rubble back then, I was working right down here, and there was this lady standing up there in the balcony just staring down there and looking at me. And you can imagine when you're standing, you feel like, you know, somebody's watching you. What little hair I have stood up on end. Of course, I turn around and see this image, and I'm like, hey. And then I just kind of go about my business, and I think I'm going to go home. But, of course, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm tired, I'm hallucinating, it's got to be something. And I kid you not, about a month and a half, 2 months later, I'm doing the same thing. And she's up there again. But what was different this time, the first time she was just standing there watching me. The second time, she actually sat down. And when she did that, I was like, oh, okay, we're good. We're good. So there are all sorts of stories about, the lights going on and off. Everything's motion censored in here. So toilets flush. All sorts of things happen all the time. We did have a paranormal group come in a couple of years ago and do an overnight investigation, and it was Misty Ghost. If you ever get a chance, go on YouTube, watch the Mystic Ghost overnight. My daughter was here with me. We did the whole night. It was really cool. It was a really cool experience. So I know I'm probably limited on time. So I would be more than happy just to open it to questions, because there's a lot that we can talk about. I don't know what direction you would like to go, but I'm happy to answer any question about what you see, what's here, what we do, what it took to get here. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
How did you know what it looked like in 1936?
Great question. We did an extensive amount of research on trying to find pictures of the inside. We were able to get the front, the lobby, but there's maybe 3 or 4 pictures in existence of in here. So like the sconces, fortunately enough, there were a couple of dilapidated ones still in here. And that kind of helped with a little bit of the design. But I also have a secret weapon. Arthur Weinman was my architect, and his grandfather designed the original. So he had a little bit of insight on some of what needed to be in here. So he knew it was art moderne. He knew what the different fixtures and finishings should be. We've got several pictures that show, the proscenium is identical. Okay, the only thing I didn't do was paint it up and fancify it up. The sconces are identical. Like I said, the floor is the exact same as it was in 1936. And if you turn back and you look, you're going to see we had to, with the Historic Commission, represent that there was still a balcony. So you'll see there's a row of seats up there. It's nothing but a display. Those are the original seats that were in here. And I asked my wife about this. I said, do you want me to refurbish those so they look nice and fancy? She said, no, let people see what it looked like, how bad it got. And the irony is, if you look, there's probably the best ones to look at are the ones all the way on the end over there. They look in really, really good condition. And part of the dark story of this building is it was a segregated building, and there was a segregated section up at the top. But ironically, the seats that survived the best were the ones that were in that segregated section. So the fact that we were able to put those on display was very important. So that's kind of how we got to that point. A lot of it was, with all of the research and everything, I was also told I was a little bit of a weirdo. A lot of people that do developments or do commercial buildings, they find the space and then they start going, well, what do we want to do? How do we want to do it? I'm the one that walked into the meeting with those that had it for us to be able to purchase. I had these big 3-inch, 3-ring binders with all the research and all the pictures and all the imagery and all the design and expectation. I was like, here's what we want to do. And I started going through all this stuff, and they were like, you did this backwards. Usually people do that after. And I said, no, I know what this place needs to be. So it just became very clear, and I became very committed to that. Thank you. Any other questions?
What was the biggest challenge?
There were several. Probably, ironically, the easiest part was working with the city. The hardest part, I'll talk about that here in a second. The hardest part was probably communicating through a contractor with the subcontractors, because when you design something as unique as this, you have a certain expectation of how that gets done, but you have contractors, no disrespect to all contractors everywhere, that think they know better on what needs to be done. And so that became a big challenge. I would come in and I was the biggest thorn in their side, because most owners, operators, they just say, go get it done, handle it, and then disappear and then come back and it's done. I was here almost every day. I was involved with everything, and I would walk in and go, nope, that's not right. You need to fix. He's like, no, that's what it says on the plans. I'm like, no, that's not right. Read at the bottom. It says check with owner before doing. Field visit, field verify. And so I had to do that over and over and over again. And that was a huge challenge. The other probably biggest challenge was this building did not have a fire sprinkler system. And in order to be up to code, you have to put in a fire sprinkler system. We put in the fire sprinkler system, and the company that did it, that will remain nameless, they didn't complete it like they were supposed to. And then we had to do a test, a pressure test. They had water in the lines and they hadn't finished it. They flooded the stage. They flooded the back bathrooms. There was 2 other places that got flooded. And it was right after I got the screen put in. So you want to talk about a big challenge? That was a big challenge. We had to replace the stage again. So, I mean, those are probably the biggest challenges. What else? These are good questions.
Who are the other 2 ghosts?
There's a little boy. My daughter named him Henry. He is very playful. He's around all the time. He's usually up here on stage down in this area. He'll show up upstairs up there. He definitely is the one that flips on and off the lights. He's tiptoed down the piano a couple of times. The other one, we don't know if there's a name. Debbie, are you in here?
Yeah,
Is there a name for the caretaker, or do we just call him the caretaker?
just call him the caretaker.
There is an old man that basically is like maintenance, has the keys, and you can hear just the dragging of the feet, walking across up and down at different times upstairs. So there was definitely a maintenance caretaker that was up in the space up there. Yes, ma'am.
You said that working with the city was not your biggest challenge.
Uh-uh.
So what made it work so well?
Carlos Flores. I will sing his praises to the end of days. He was incredibly helpful. But on top of that, if I ever had a question, I'd call to the city. I'd talk to Robert Stearns. I would talk to city manager. I would talk to zoning, whatever, whoever I would call and say, hey, this is what I need to find out about. What do I need to do? And literally, they were Johnny on the spot. Yeah, this is what you need. Here's who you need to talk to. Here's what needs to happen. Go ahead and get this done, and we'll have it done. I can't even tell you. There was a number of times that the contractor would come to me and say, sorry, we can't get a permit for this or that. And I'd be like, give me a minute. Pick up the phone and I call. And then they're like, yeah, we've got it. It's right here. I go down and pick it up, bring it back and go, here. They're like, how did you do that? I said, I don't know. The city's just very supportive of this building, very supportive of what it brings to the community, being able to bring it back. They were always right there just to whatever. I mean, inspections, compassionate on inspections. They would come through and be like, dude, I'm sorry, but you got to have rails. And I'm like, what do you mean I have to have rails? We give you the plans, you approve the plans, it's not theirs. I know, but you have to have rails. Okay. So then I put on rails, and they're like, no, those are not code rails. Oh, okay. So then we get the regular rails and put them in. I mean, that's just one example. But, I mean, if I needed them to come do something, they were here. I didn't have to wait, which was phenomenal. So I will sing the city of Fort Worth praises for forever just because of that. Yes, ma'am. Carlos Flores is a city council representative for here. I had him on speed dial, still do. But he said if there was any questions or any direction or help that I needed to call him or email him, and I would. And I mean, there's a lot I had to learn. I've done theaters my whole life. I'm a theater person. Designing a theater I can do. Doing a build I have to learn, and I had to learn it from the ground up. I learned every bit of it. I learned the Historic Commission process. I learned the Historic Society process. I learned, how many different zoning and permitting and steps you have to take and how to get it up to code and all of those types of things. I had to learn all of that. I mean, just having the idea and the concept was one thing, but being able to follow through and do all those things, I now feel like I'm an encyclopedia when it comes to a lot of those things, just because I really had to dig in and learn all those things in depth. So.
And as a follow-up to that, you said your architect
Mm-hmm.
was the grandson?
Yes, Arthur Weinman.
About what he knew and
When I met Arthur, I mean, Arthur is a machine. He's about 78, 79 years old, still working, doing multiple projects everywhere. He actually did the clock tower down in Fort Worth on the courthouse. He was responsible for that design. Just a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge. The fact that his grandfather did the original, he and I spent some time together trying to actually find the original plans, which to no avail. Unfortunately, we were not able to find that, but he did have a lot of drawings and sketches and things that he could pull from. But again, just a wealth of knowledge, especially on style, what types of style of things needs to be there. Now, I mean, everything that's in here, we made the decisions on what that was and what that looks like. And again, my wife will kill me if I don't point out the fact the seats that you're sitting in, she picked the color scheme and the fabric and everything that you see on those. Because honestly, when we were starting to look at it, I mean, I had all these samples, I had all the woods and all these other things. And I originally thought we wanted to go light fabric, dark wood. And she was like, no, it's got to go the other way. And she was right. I mean, it looks beautiful this way. And it really pops because when you walk in, that brighter color on the back makes it easier and safer for you to get in and see where you're sitting. And then obviously facing this way with the blue, it's just gorgeous. So lots of help from that standpoint. Yes, ma'am.
You said that there's so much that you had to learn.
Yes.
I'm just curious how you kept moving forward and like when you didn't know something, who were the people that you went to find out about it, and how you kept from just being overwhelmed and frozen in the not knowing some of those things.
My wife is a saint. She had to deal with, I'd go through a frustrating day. I would come home and just verbally vomit on her. And I mean, there's just the frustration. I've got to deal with this, and I got this, and da-da-da-da-da. And she'll sit there and she'll listen to it. She'll help, just let it go. And then she's like, okay, so where do you need to start? We had a really good friend that passed away not too long ago that her mantra was that whole idea of how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And so we would always go back to that. So what can you do? Don't look at the big picture of all of it. Where are you right now? What can you tackle right now? So that always pushed me in the direction to say, okay, I need to focus on this. And then she'll tell you, I'm kind of tenacious on that. I mean, I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not going to give up until I figure it out. And so I spent a lot of time doing my own research. I would call a lot of people. Learned a lot from the standpoint, there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas and input. To put this in a tasteful way, I guess, but they have their own agenda. And having to learn how to filter that and be able to say, that's not what I want. This is what I need. This is what I want. Continuing to work beyond that. So even if I got bits and pieces, I would take those bits and pieces. A lot of times that would be sort of like a Sherlock Holmes process that you would get, I'd call Carlos Flores about, something as simple as, a permitting issue or whatever it is. Well, whatever the words that he throws out there, there's 3 or 4 keywords that pop up. I grab those keywords, I'm searching those keywords. I'm doing research on other projects that have had to deal with that or looking at problems with that. I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time researching. Just needing to know more on how that worked. Leah can attest to this. There were a lot of people that just looked at this and went, yeah, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. A lot of, bigwigs, a lot of people that are big, huge developer people were like, nah, that's not going to happen. It's impossible. You can't do it. It's funny how tides have turned and now it's done. I always tell people it's the pretty woman moment where you're like, you could have helped me. Big mistake. Huge. I'm going to go watch a show now. So, so I mean, that was a learning curve. I mean, there's a lot of eyes wide open about that now. If I were to do this again, and I mean, I was talking to Jerry about this too. It was like, first off, my wife would kill me if I wanted to do a second one, by the way. But what I've learned on what to do, what not to do, when I say that I'm an encyclopedia, I feel like at this point I'm in a position where I can give back to those that may be interested in pursuing something. Maybe not as grand a scale as this, But any varying level of that, I think I have a wealth of expertise that I can bring to the table to say, hey, let's walk through this. Let's look at what you can tackle, what will work, what won't, and do that in a way that is supportive and encouraging and positive about the fact that you can do it. I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing to me, regardless of what anybody would have said and done. I'm standing on the stage in this amazing building. I did it. I did get it done. I did stay committed to it. I did stay focused to it. I took all my lumps. I took all the hits. I own my mistakes. I'm better for it. I'm humbled by it, and greatly appreciative of where I have come to at this point, and would never discourage anybody from pursuing whatever it may be because of it. I feel like I would be the biggest champion and cheerleader because, I mean, some people are going to say, yeah, well, it's just, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm going to say, yeah, you can. You really can. It may be hard. It may be tough. But yeah, you can do it. You just need the right push, the right nudge. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned the Sesame Street.
Yes.
Which is exciting. What's another big project, big dream that you're hoping for?
Oh my gosh. Obviously, for me, I mean, theater is my background, theater is my love, theater is my passion. So having more stage plays in here, I think, is important. We're looking at doing It's a Wonderful Life radio play, so it's a little different, a little unique, the first weekend in December. We're looking at trying to cast that right now, seeing if we can actually pull that together. I want to see more professional companies coming through. I think it's important to also, the next step on that is advocacy and giving back to the community and providing for opportunities to subsidize or help or enhance the education process. Obviously, education is very important to me, and getting people to a point where they understand that we have to listen to the student. The student provides a lot of information on that, so being able to provide forums for that, to be able to connect more to help improve our current education system as a whole. I know that's a delusion of grandeur, but having an opportunity to create a conduit and a voice and an opportunity for folks to learn more, to build more, to change from within on that. I'd like to see those things coming into the space. But yeah, residencies, that's the brass ring for me. The fact that we've got Sesame Street coming for 13, I think that's huge. That's amazing. More things like that would be phenomenal. Yes?
Two-part question.
Yes?
Was it always called ISIS? And second question is, why this building?
First part, it's always been called the ISIS, yes. No, it's a great question. You're not alone in asking that question. People are always like, where did that come from? Actually, back in the 1914 era, 1914 through 1930, probably even beyond that, there was a national movie chain called ISIS. And it's based off the goddess, the Egyptian goddess Isis, and it's all about prosperity and fortuity and things of that nature. I always tell people, think of that Great Gatsby feel. It's all about that kind of experience. So it was always called the ISIS, and when I told you that this building got remodeled between 1935 and 1936, the owner at that time peeled away and made it a private building. It was no longer part of the ISIS chain. That's why if you look at the blade sign out there, it says New ISIS. That was his doing to call it the New ISIS. Now it's privately owned as New ISIS. So we've coined it as Downtown Cowtown at the ISIS because thanks to a certain group in the Middle East, you can't have an ISIS webpage. Oh, yeah, okay. So, yes, I got my wife on a watch list when I first started doing this. I don't do social media, okay? I don't get on social media. I don't do that. And I was on her, she has a Facebook, and then I go on there and I started creating some sort of post that said, help save ISIS. And before I got much further than that, my screen went blue. And I was like, oh, what did I do? Then this little notice popped up and says, we'll be. What did I do? So sure enough, they came back and said they were trying to make sure that they were verifying that it was an actual company. And I was like, huh? Yes, it is. Please leave my wife alone. So I'm sure she's on a watch list somewhere because of that. So yeah. So, and the second part of your question, why this building? This building has been an eyesore for a very long time, and it's actually a historic landmark. It's on the National Registry. I made sure of that. It is part of the fabric of what Fort Worth is. And the fact that it was just left to its own demise and nobody was going to touch it, nobody was going to do it, that's why this building. I think it was far more important to salvage this and bring this back and give it back to the community than to just let it sit and rot.
Are you from Fort Worth? Like, did you see it every day when you were a kid? Like,
Well, I was born here, yes. Moved around a lot when I was young. And I've been back here since 1990. But yeah, from the 90s on, I drove by this building all the time. And was like, and my wife will tell you, I drive by, I said, somebody needs to do something. We need to, I can't believe it's just sitting there. It shouldn't be. Great location, great building, great representation, significant history. Why is nobody doing anything? So that's why.
Let's do one more question.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
Oh, great marquee too. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I love the marquee on the building. So when you were doing this, were you inspired at all by what they've done in Dallas, like with the Texas Theater? Or
Actually, no. My inspiration on this was far more think Paramount in Abilene. The Franklin in Franklin, Tennessee. These smaller, more intimate, extravagant experiences, for lack of a better term. I do like the Texas Theater. The Texas Theater has its own significance. It's very unique in that sense, but I'm far more about the live stage aspect and the live stage experience, and that's more what I've leaned towards. So those were more of the influences were those types of theaters, and there's hundreds nationwide of these historic theaters that have come back that they've learned that they've got to put a stage in it as well. I think this is probably one of the larger ones. Most of them are about 200 or 300 seat houses, and this one's 500. And even the Cactus Theater out in Lubbock, those guys are phenomenal. He's got 300 seats, 280, something like that, but he has a balcony. It's a little different. So just having the bits and pieces and being able to talk to a lot of these people was very helpful and supportive in that process.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
There's still tacos and coffee up front. Don't make me take them with me.
You are welcome to take a tour of the space if you would like to take a look around. When we talk about, when I say this being a massive sculpt, it is. Feel free, you can go grab something in the front, take a look at the pictures. If you have questions about the pictures, let me know. But you're welcome to go upstairs. You can take a look at the bar upstairs, take a look at how we've moved the production booth forward, the green room, dressing room, all of that. Please feel free to do so.